Hello everyone, Matt from Model Minutes here and welcome back to the workbench for another unboxing. Today I'm taking a look at this, the Curtiss P-36A in 1/72 scale from Arma Hobby. So join me as I get stuck inside the box and see what this kit is like. So on the outside here we can see we've got this image of the P-36 in its kind of early war paint scheme, and it has been in some kind of combat. It looks like it's successfully managed to take an enemy aircraft out of the fight. We do have an item code up here which is 70081, and it indicates to us that it has plastic kit, decals and masks inside the box. If we flip over to the other side of the box, you can see an indication of the three paint schemes which are included. We have a all silver one, we have a silver one with a little bit more going on, and then we have a sort of camouflage green and a grey lower surface. So if we flip to the thin edges, we have the same information that we've already seen on the front. And on this side here, we do have some health and safety information, as well as a address for Arma Hobby. Thin edges feature the same information that we've already seen on the front. And I like that they've orientated it in different directions depending on how you position it on your shelf, so you can see what you've got. It's a bit disappointing as I've been looking over the box here that I've not been able to find a tooling date or a copyright date on here. Doesn't mean there isn't one, it just means that at this moment in time I've not been able to find one, which is a bit disappointing because if you saw this on the shelf you might not have any indication of the age of the kit. But, you know, fortunately I do actually know how old this kit is. So opening the box then, we are met with a plastic bag which contains all of our bits and pieces. So as usual, I'm going to start with the instructions first and then move on to the other elements. So instructions then, we have some information about the actual P-36 up here in different languages. We then have a indication of what should be included in the kit, so decals, masks, transparent parts and main plastic parts. And then we have paint color callouts down here. They've done sort of what other companies do where they will suggest a color and then give it a letter code, but in this case they've suggested loads of different paint brands as well to pick from, so you can kind of go through and decide if you've got something suitable in the stash. Down here is a key to the different symbols that we might encounter during the build, and you can see that it is printed in color, which is good. So starting off then, we do have some information here that we need to fill in or remove some of these details on here. I presume that's because of the different versions that this kit kind of represents. So in this case, you need to clean off some of these details. But other than that, we then begin our construction. So we have a part here. These are for the landing gear bays. It looks as though if you want to use material for wheel covers, you don't actually have to do this, so obviously that will take a little bit of research on your own part to determine what you want to do. So as you can see here, it gives us the option of these two different parts. So these are material wheel covers, or these are like landing gear bay without the material inside of it. So I would probably have to check which version I'm doing to decide which one I want to use. Wing surfaces go together, and then on the upper part of the wing we can add our internal cockpit components. This seems to be quite similar to some other like P-40 kind of kits I've built in the past, and actually that's part of the reason why I bought this one, because everybody knows that I like a P-40. Well, the P-36 is like the precursor to the P-40, so it should share some design similarities. Inside of the cockpit you can see we've got a different color callouts and some extra details which need to be added, and there are also decals for some of the dials and things. So we've got a seat there with some decals for our seat belts. We have control panel with, again, some more decals by the looks of it. And then as we come down, we install all this inside of our cockpit. And then, what are we on now? 10, 11, we add our upper fuselage to our wings that we've already built. In this particular instance, it's telling us to fill in the gun holes. I don't think we need the guns in the wings for that, the version that we've got here. And then we come to the tails. The tail surfaces get glued in, and then the front of the nose, which is where we'll mount the engine in a bit. Speaking of the engine, it comes in a number of components which we can then add. There are a number of parts for the cowling which need to be added, and the upper surface with machine guns can be glued onto the top. I presume you might be able to leave some of these off if you really wanted to display the engine. Landing gear seems to be assembled in quite a straightforward manner, with the legs and the wheels being added on, and then that gets glued into position on the lower side of the aircraft. No indication that there is a raised landing gear option. I believe you may have to modify the kit if you wanted to have a raised wheels in your aircraft. There doesn't appear to be a pilot figure mentioned either, so a wheels down build, if you're going to do this out of the box, is pretty much the only option. Propeller gets added on, doesn't appear to be designed in such a way to freely rotate other than just being a press fit. That's a fuel filler cap, I'm pretty sure, that goes inside of the kind of rear window area, and then we come on to our actual windows, and there is even a bit of an aerial rigging diagram here as well, which is pretty good. And then we've got our paint schemes in a little bit more detail than we saw on the box, and it does indicate the different colors and also all the different transfers and things that we need to do. First one we've got here is an aircraft from December 1941 in Wheeler Field in Hawaii. We then have P-36A in Panama in 1941, which is, you know, that's quite an interesting paint scheme. It's got a lot more different bits of color going on there, which could be interesting. And then we have our typical wartime camouflage upper and light grey lower. This one in particular is part of a gunnery school in 1943. I'm tempted, I think, to go for this one because it's a bit more vibrant, it's a little bit more colourful, it's got a little bit more going on. So this is potentially the one that I would be interested in doing. But you let me know in the comments which one would you do. So that's the instructions. We do have included our decals. Decals come on one little sheet, and I believe these are printed by TechMod. I have used TechMod before. They go okay, they're fine. They look to be printed quite nicely. Registration is good. There's not much in the way of excess decal film. You can see that our bands here on the fuselage side for the more colourful scheme, that's a single piece. Doesn't feel overly thick. Small details here they're printed okay. They're perhaps not as legible as you can get from other brands, but they're still, you know, perfectly acceptable. Seat belts, little letters and things. Yeah, these come out quite nice. I don't anticipate any problems. I've used TechMod decals before. They generally are completely acceptable. We also have a mask sheet, which is so good. I love it when they include a mask sheet because it means you can just crack on with your build straight away. And this is on the yellow tape, which is usually superior to some of the other color tapes you can get, purely because it just bends around the surfaces and it adheres quite nicely. And it looks like we've got canopy parts and also wheels, which we can mask up and paint. So yeah, that's good. This brings us then onto our plastic parts. I'm going to put the main plastic parts to one side and get out the clear parts first, which come in their own little bag, which is good because it helps prevent any damage. So Arma Hobby clear plastic sprue. Some people might say, what are these on the side here for? I think that's for stacking. When they have made their sprues, they stack them on top of each other and these sort of lock in. They like allow you to stack them on top of each other. Right, so we have our clear parts molded pretty nicely. There is a hint of flash in a few places, but the plastic is pretty nice and clear. So we've got two different windscreen options here, depending on the version that we are doing. I believe we might need that one. And then we have our main canopy part here. I don't think it indicated that we could have it in an open position. No, in here it only indicates that we should install it in the closed position. I imagine with a little bit of modification you could get it in the open position, but I don't think they've technically designed that into the kit, but I'll have to investigate when I get to that point in the build. Yeah, only a tiny little bit of flash, not much. Molded details are fairly proud, but you know, you've got a mask sheet, so that shouldn't be a problem. Yeah, they look all right, don't they? They're not bad. This brings us on to the grey plastic sprues. This is a medium kind of grey. Something has come off. Something has come off. Look already. That looks like I don't know. Is that an engine exhaust perhaps? That's already come off of the sprue. Let's see where that came from. I think it came from here. Looks like it came from there. Number 3. I'll put it in the bag and we'll investigate that when we get around to it. So let's not lose that. So straight off the bat, I can notice there is some flash on the sprue, but the level of flash on the actual plastic parts is minimal. There's a little hint of it in a few places, but not a great deal. The plastic is relatively flexible. It has an ever so slightly greasy feel to it, but not massively so, not compared to other companies. Quite dense. A little bit of flex, doesn't feel brittle, so that's good. Right, so wings then. Wings have nice, subtle, recessed panel lines and some rivet details, which is nice. See, there's a nice little bit of ribbing on the inside there. Our sort of canvas parts for our landing gear bays here have left and right on them. If I flip over, we should see a little bit of texture. Yeah, there's a little bit of texture on the inside there. So on the internal surfaces here, you can see we've got some big ejector pin marks, but these I don't think are going to be visible, which is good. And yeah, it looks like all the ejector pin marks are not going to be visible. They're not on visible surfaces, which will be handy. We have our fuselage sides here. Again, the level of detail is quite nice. There is some little rivets in a few places. The recessed panel lines are not overly thick. Engine detail here. We've got a slight bend on one of the parts there, but I can work that back into position. Pilot's seat straight out of the box looks okay. We have our lower wing surfaces. Again, I think there's some bits here that we had to remove, so I'll have to investigate that when we get into it. Smaller details are nicely reproduced. Propeller. Yeah, it looks alright, doesn't it? It looks pretty nice. I do like the shape of the P-40/P-36. Right, so sprue B. We have our landing gear bay component here. This is the one that we would have to fold into shape. The rear bulkhead for our pilot. Engine components. Control panels. There's two different control panels, so obviously you need to pick the correct one for the version you're doing. So they've obviously designed different variants into this particular tooling. We have engine cowlings. That looks like our control columns, nicely reproduced. Smaller details, pretty good. Again, just a hint of flash in a few places. Other smaller details there. Some of these we're not going to be needing. I think some of these are like our machine guns for the wings, which I don't think our version has. Tail surfaces. Yeah, it's quite nice, isn't it? It's a nice looking kit. I'm looking forward to getting on with this one. Engine details are quite nicely reproduced. I like that. I hope it goes together really well. That would be really fantastic. Yeah, so this looks good. This looks really nice. So let's wrap up. We had two medium grey plastic sprues molded to a lovely quality, a hint of flash in a few places, and we did have one part that had come away from the sprue, which is a little disappointing, but you know, as long as I put it back in the bag and don't lose it, we'll be fine. We had one clear sprue, which again is molded to a lovely quality. We had masks for our clear parts, which is great. One sheet of decals printed to a nice quality. Perhaps some of the printing isn't as legible as some other companies that we've had in the same scale, but actually these should be absolutely fine. I don't see any problems with them. We did have our instructions. Maybe, you know, you've got to sit down and spend a little bit of time reading them to figure out what you've got to do. There is some modification required on this kit to replicate an earlier version of the P-36, but they have indicated, such as here, what you actually need to do in order to sort that out. So I'll have to investigate that when I get into it. All of that came contained within this rather lovely box. And there is one thing I do actually want to point out as well, is that whilst you can build the kit exactly as it is here out of the box, you do have a little note here saying that there are actually 3D printable files for extra detail parts, or just parts that are more detailed than are included in the kit. So you can go to their website, you can effectively, it's like signing up to their newsletter or something to get the parts. And I've already done that. I've already printed them out. So I printed these at home. It's not something you can send off for. You have to print them at home if you've got a 3D printer. So obviously I know this is not accessible to everybody, but the point here is that this is an add-on. It's not something that you have to print out in order to build the kit. You can build the kit with what we've just seen inside the box. This is an optional extra if you would like it. It's like a freebie bonus. So I've already printed these out, and you can see that what we got was a bulkhead with a chair already attached to it, and there are already some seat belts attached to the chair. We have engine exhausts, which perhaps are a little finer, and we have a control panel as well. Does that compare? Is it any better than the kit version? Because this is the thing, sometimes you can 3D print things in an angle or in a certain way that perhaps injection molding doesn't let you achieve. So that one there, no, that one, it's that one there. Is that any better? Don't know. It might be ever so slightly thinner. The details are similar, but slightly different. I would say perhaps the 3D printed version has a little bit more almost like 3D to it, because you don't have to worry about getting it out of a mold. So like the rudder pedals on this one are a little flatter, whereas this one, it has them sort of curved back a bit more. So yeah, I think that's the benefit of 3D printing, is that you can get certain shapes that you can't necessarily get just using injection molding, because they can't get out of the mold if they do it in certain ways. So the engine exhausts also, we had those in it as an extra part. If you look and compare, the 3D printed part or has like a channel in it, whereas this one doesn't, because it'd have to use slide molding. So yeah, they are slightly upgraded parts, or slightly more detailed parts, which you can achieve with 3D printing, which you might not necessarily be able to do with injection molding. So I like that. I like that they've given you the choice. Obviously you can just build the kit out of the box if you want to, but we do have some slightly upgraded, perhaps for want of a better word, parts which you can print at home if you'd like to do so. So I like that. I like the idea of that. It's an optional extra. So with all of that in mind, let's talk about the age of the kit. Didn't see a copyright date on the kit, didn't see a tooling information. We have got a copyright date here on the instructions of 2025, and that is actually the release date. That's the tooling date. So this is from last year. So this is effectively one of the newer model kits that I've explored on my channel in recent years. As mentioned, I bought it because I like the idea of a P-40, and the P-36 is the precursor, and I've never experienced anything from Arma Hobby before. So how much would you be expected to pay for this? Well, currently on the Arma Hobby website, it says that the RRP is £19.38. So it's a little bit pricey in comparison to other similar kits from other companies of the same kind of scale. However, don't forget that you are getting in there canopy masks and the option to download some freebies as well. And it's a new tooling, and it does look quite nice. Perhaps when you compare this to other similar type kits, it's a little bit more pricey, but I'm sure that you could probably find this at a slightly cheaper price from various sellers. So yeah, if you found this for like £15, I think it would be an absolute bargain. Nicely detailed parts, colour instructions, free paint schemes, canopy masks included already, downloadable extras. Yeah, I'm quite happy with this one. I'm looking forward to getting started with it. And with that, I think I'm going to call this video here. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of my unboxing review and if my assessment of this kit was fair. Don't forget that we do have a Model Minutes Model Club, and if you'd like to join the Model Club and get exclusive access to perks and early access videos just like these Model Club members on screen here, check out the links in the description. Thanks to these Model Club members for the extra support they give the channel, allowing me to create consistent content. If you'd like to support the channel in other ways, full information is below the video, but the best way to support the channel for free is by subscribing with notifications turned on so you never miss a modelling upload. Finally though, last thing to say is a massive thank you to you for watching this one, and I'll see you on the workbench again next time.